Watch out. The ad wars have begun in the presidential race, and truth and fairness are at risk.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
An example is the "We've heard it all before" ad from the Obama campaign.
I know how jobs are created.
You may have watched it on Channel 9. It aired throughout Florida and in swing states across the country.
When Mitt Romney talks about what he'd do as president.
As candidate for governor of Massachusetts in 2002, Mitt Romney declared, "I know what it takes to create jobs," just as he's saying now. But it didn't work then, and it won't work now, according to the ad. Is this rap against Romney fair? No. It twists statistics to create a distorted view of the Romney record.
Massachusetts lost 40,000 manufacturing jobs.
By any fair assessment, things got marginally better in Massachusetts under Romney. Not a lot better, but a little better. About the same as the U.S. economy under President Obama. Consider the ad's main claims. Yes, Massachusetts ranks 47th in the nation in job creation under Governor Romney, but that was a 4-year average, and the state's ranking actually improved from 50th when Romney took office to 28th when he left. Yes, Massachusetts lost 40,000 manufacturing jobs under Governor Romney, but that hemorrhage began long before he became governor and lessened on his watch. I could go on.
And left the state $2.6 billion deeper in debt.
There are half-truths like those in this ad and whole truths. In assessing the candidates, voters should strive for the whole truth. And attack ads aren't much help in that effort because they mostly offer half-truths. Last week I reviewed an Obama ad and called it misleading. The Romney camp responded to that ad with this one.
Mitt Romney had the best jobs record in a decade.
However, this one shades the truth as much as Obama's. Yes, Massachusetts' jobless rate dropped under Romney, but that rate basically tracked the national index, rising and falling with it. Yes, Romney balanced the state budget without raising taxes, but to do that he increased government fees by hundreds of millions of dollars. After airing that ad, the Romney camp returned to attacking President Obama with this ad.
The private sector is doing fine.
This powerful ad works on the subconscious by repeating the president's words. But is it fair? In one sense, yes. Using an opponent's words against him is no foul, even when the words are taken out of context. President Obama did it against John McCain in 2008, and it happens all the time. In a deeper sense, no. Missing context matters, in this case and most others. The president spoke about waning public sector employment. Since the recession officially ended in June 2009, corporate profits rose 58%, and private companies added 3.1 million jobs. But public employment dropped by 601,000 jobs in the same period as state and local governments cut costs. Are public sector layoffs helping or hurting the recovery? Getting a substantive answer rather than mocking the president would help to create what a U.S. Supreme Court decision this week called searching, thoughtful, rational civic discourse.
The private sector is doing fine.
Political ads come in two forms: candidate ads and third-party ads. In the former, we know who funded them and whether the candidate approved them. With third-party ads, we don't know these things, and they are predictably more negative. Today I assess one such ad attacking Democratic U.S. Senator Bill Nelson.
What's Nelson voted against?
The ad was sponsored by the group Americans for Prosperity, run by the conservative Koch brothers from Kansas, who are oil and gas billionaires.
It's time to send a message to Washington. Stop the spending.
Its main claims against Senator Nelson are these.
Who voted for the wasteful $800 billion stimulus?
Was the stimulus plan in fact wasteful spending? Not according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. It says the stimulus boosted employment by somewhere between 1.4 million and 3.3 million jobs, compared with what employment would have been otherwise.
Barack Obama's $1 trillion health care law.
Likewise, is the Obama health care plan wasteful spending? Again, not according to the Congressional Budget Office. By 2021, the CBO says, Obama's plan will increase the number of Americans with health insurance by about 34 million, while cutting the federal budget deficit an estimated $210 billion. Although the CBO's findings are estimates, they are at least based on thoughtful research by experts with no political leaning or agenda.
What's Nelson voted against?
The same cannot always be said for third-party ads, and viewers should take notice. The presidential race briefly became a satirical song war last week. It started with an Obama ad showing Mitt Romney singing America the Beautiful during an appearance at the Villages in Florida.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies.
So in love with you.
Then the Romney campaign aired a commercial with Mr. Obama crooning Al Green's Let's Stay Together, but it got pulled for violating Mr. Green's copyright. Some observers call this Obama ad the season's best.
For amber waves of grain.
It opens showing Mr. Romney singing off-key, followed by images of shuttered factories and offshore islands, overlaid with quotes from news reports criticizing Romney. This commercial is effective because of the juxtaposition it creates between what Romney sings and what news reports say he did.
And crown thy good.
The subliminal message is he can't be trusted. Is this message fair? As proven fact, absolutely not. What we have here are insinuations, for example, that he created offshore bank accounts for the purpose of hiding wealth. But insinuations matter in defining a candidate, and Romney, unlike Obama, is not well defined in the public mind. It's a pity Romney's response ad got pulled. A pity for Mr. Obama because he's the better singer. A pity for Romney because he opened a new attack against President Obama, accusing him of rewarding campaign donors with government favors. Reality Check will assess this charge if it resurfaces in another ad. For now, the sluggish economy is Romney's best friend. New poll figures put him ahead amidst renewed concern over the economy, so maybe Mr. Romney can lose the ad war and still win the election.
Barack Obama's got lots of excuses for the bad economy.
Today I review an ad from Crossroads GPS, an outside group founded by Karl Rove and directed by Carl Forte, who was Governor Romney's political director in 2008. By law, these super PACs must be independent from presidential campaigns. They can't directly coordinate their ad strategies with those of the campaigns. This ad makes two related claims. First,
Headwinds coming from Europe. We've had a string of bad luck. An earthquake in Japan. An Arab Spring.
An ATM, you don't go to a bank teller.
Some things that we could not control.
I don't know how often Mr. Obama made these comments, and the ad doesn't say, so I'll focus on the headwinds from Europe matter. Data from the respected OECD show a pattern. Jobless figures in the Eurozone, North America, and Japan track together up and down, and last month our 8.2 jobless rate was about in the middle, better than the Eurozone's 11.1, but not as good as Japan's 4.4 rate. Evidently, in this global economy, our economic well-being depends upon that of our trading partners. As for the ad's second message,
Tell Obama for real job growth, cut the debt.
the national debt is so large, according to data from the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, for two main reasons: the Bush-era tax cuts and the cost of funding wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And besides, presidents can't reduce the debt by themselves. Congressional action is needed too, and right now, neither the Republican-controlled House nor the Democratic-controlled Senate wants to compromise on taxes and spending.
Sandy Adams talks about reducing the deficit.
It sure upsets a Republican politician these days when someone questions their conservative credentials. Case in point, Sandy Adams' campaign has accused John Mica of blatantly lying in his latest ad and called upon him to pull down that dishonest ad. Let's watch and listen.
Given the chance, she failed us. 6 times she voted against cutting the skyrocketing budget.
The ad's key allegations flash on screen for about a second. By the way, that's not nice, Mr. Mica. Not if you want viewers to read what you're alleging. Freezing this frame, we see the claim that Adams voted 6 times against cutting the federal budget. Well, clear enough on 5 of these. They were amendments to cut spending from 1 to 6% on particular bills. The significance is questionable. None of these amendments passed, but true enough, Adams voted no and Mica yes. It's House Continuing Resolution 34 that provoked Adams' ire. This is the well-known Paul Ryan budget bill, which Adams voted yes on, along with every other House Republican. The budget would have slashed federal spending, but it died in the Senate. Still, there's a nuance worth noting. Before the Ryan vote, House members considered an amendment to cut spending even more, an estimated $9 trillion over 10 years, with Micah voting aye and Adams nay. On this important measure, which nearly passed the House, Micah earns conservative bragging rights over Adams. If only he had correctly identified that vote in his ad, then he would have made his point accurately, and she would have no basis for complaint.
I'm John Micah, and I approve this message.
The race between John Micah and Sandy Adams features competing narratives. His narrative that she's not what she seems, and her narrative that he is what he seems, a Washington insider. Adams' latest cheerleader ad makes three main claims. First, that Micah voted 6 times to raise the federal debt limit, an explosive charge since he boasted in one of his ads about voting 12 times against such measures. And she's right about 5 of those votes. Micah voted 4 times to extend the debt limit under President Bush and once under President Clinton before such votes became so partisan. Second,
he wasted money on things like Sunrail.
She calls him out for supporting the Sunrail boondoggle. Well, true in part. As head of the House Transportation Committee, Micah doggedly supported Sunrail, but can you call something not yet built and tested a boondoggle? The commuter rail line is projected to move as many people as 1 lane of I-4 during rush hour at roughly half the cost of building a single lane on the interstate. Adams may already know this, however, because she herself voted for Sunrail as a state representative in 2009. Third,
now he's passed legislation to allow tolls on I-4.
She says he voted to allow toll lanes on I-4. That's mostly correct. He voted to end a ban on adding, that's the operative word, adding toll lanes on I-4. So except for characterizing Sunrail as a boondoggle, a claim that remains to be seen, the assertions in Adams' ad are mostly true and support her argument about Micah being a Washington insider. The race for state attorney in the Ninth Circuit, covering Orange and Osceola counties, has generated lots of heat but not much light. By that I mean not much light has been cast on the candidates' counterposed claims. I'll try to shed some light on a new ad from Jeff Ashton. First, he claims to have pioneered the use of DNA evidence. While success has many fathers, this claim seems warranted. In 1987, Ashton sat second seat behind prosecutor Tim Berry in a rape trial in which DNA evidence was first used to win a conviction. Ashton suggested using DNA following an article he had read and presented the DNA evidence at trial. Next, Ashton criticizes Lamar for not appearing in court. This claim is overstated. Lamar has made 94 grand jury presentations, which is certainly courtroom work, besides handling 4 cases since his first election, though none since 1989. I wish Ashton had explained why a state attorney supervising 145 prosecutors should try cases himself when his counterparts in other large circuits rarely, if ever, do. Finally, the ad cites the circuit's low conviction rate. This claim is valid. Lamar's circuit has had one of the state's lowest conviction rates during the last 5 years, according to the state court's administrator. Lamar responds that he puts more felons in prison than larger circuits like Miami and Fort Lauderdale. His conviction rate is low, he says, because he errs on the side of taking cases to trial rather than trying only easy ones. As background for this reality check, the Democrats control the Senate 53-47, so Republicans need 4 more seats to take charge. Nationwide, there are 9 toss-up Senate elections in which either party could win, 6 with a Democratic incumbent, Nelson one of them, making his seat a must-win pretty much for either party. In this ad, Nelson seeks to introduce Mac to voters on his, that is, on Nelson's terms.
A promoter for Hooters, with a history of barroom brawling, altercations, and road rage.
The claim that Mac worked as a promoter for Hooters is mostly true, depending on what one means by promoter. Stated more precisely, he worked as a marketing executive from 1994 to 2000 for a company that owned restaurants, including several Hooters. The statement that Mac has a history of barroom brawling and road rage is true. These incidents include an altercation with baseball player Ron Gant at an Atlanta sports bar, which was the subject of a lawsuit. But none of this history is recent. The last incident was in 1992.
A big spender.
The assertion that Mac had a trail of debts and liens is partly true. I say partly because these debts and liens occurred in a concentrated time period, coinciding with Mac's divorce from his first wife Ann soon after his election to Congress. And yes, His attendance record in Congress has been subpar. Over 4 terms in the House, he missed 6% of the recorded votes, more than twice the median for House members. But in the past year, while he was campaigning for Senate, he failed to vote 29% of the time, earning the House's 7th worst voting record.
Questionable work habits.
So overall, I rate this ad mostly true.
He's made his choice.
Today, I reality check an Obama ad that started soon after Governor Romney named Paul Ryan his running mate. Basically, it says Ryan and Romney are the same on women's issues. Like most, this ad makes 3 claims. As Romney stated in his primary campaign, he would withdraw funding from Planned Parenthood, which the Ryan budget plan also does, so this claim is true. The 2 men agree.
In Congress, Ryan voted to ban all federal funding for Planned Parenthood.
I rate this claim misleading because Ryan didn't vote against these health care provisions per se. He voted against requiring religious employers to provide them. For him, it's an issue of religious liberty.
And both Romney and Ryan back proposals to outlaw abortion.
In Mitt Romney's case, this claim is mostly false. False because he does in fact make exceptions in opposing abortion, exceptions for cases of incest, rape, and pregnancies where the mother's life is at risk. But mostly false because he says other things too. He favors overturning Roe v. Wade, which, if it happened, would allow states to outlaw abortion in all cases if they choose, and he supports the GOP platform, which calls for a human life amendment that would outlaw abortion without explicit exemptions for rape or incest. Paul Ryan's abortion stance is clear. He was a consistent foe in Congress, earning a 100% rating from anti-abortion groups, and would allow abortion only to save a mother's life.
For women, for president, the choice is ours.
So overall, I give this ad a mixed rating, from true to misleading to mostly false.
You called a woman who testified in front of you.
This is nonsense. This
hey, Mr.
is
Grayson,
utter don't shout at me.
These 2 candidates seem to argue more than debate this week, but only one is using his significant financial advantage and the airwaves to attack his opponent. The sole ad in this race so far is a Grayson spot portraying Long as an extremist on Social Security.
Todd Long wants to dismantle Social Security.
I would say with Social Security, I would personally privatize it. You privatize Social Security? I would definitely privatize it.
So what are the facts? Point 1. The quote from Long's interview with radio host Bud Hettinger is fair and accurate. Accurate because he said it. I listened to the tape. Fair because he said it only last month and because he said it flatly. I want to privatize Social Security. Point 2. Long has since qualified his position on this issue. After the Grayson ad appeared, he held a press conference to say he would not support changes affecting current seniors, but he would allow those under 55 the option of placing their money in private accounts with the government guaranteeing their principal. It's fair for Long to update his position so voters know what he would do if elected, and fair for Grayson to use his past words against him to give voters a fuller picture. Point 3. Saying, as the ad does, that Long would dismantle Social Security is over the top. Depending on what happens, we may never know the effect of allowing those under 55 to opt out of the program. That's for voters to conjure. The presidential campaigns are running dueling ads on the issue of who is softer on China, Mitt Romney or President Obama. The duel began with this Romney ad.
We've lost over 500,000 manufacturing jobs.
Then Obama responded with this.
Relocating jobs to low-wage countries like China.
About America losing manufacturing jobs, it all depends on when you start counting. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, America has lost 500,000 manufacturing jobs since President Obama took office in 2009, just as the Romney ad claims. But since early 2010, manufacturing has rebounded, adding several 100,000 new jobs and giving Team Obama something to crow about. A second issue is Mr. Romney's claim that, quote, 7 times Obama could have stopped China's cheating, unquote. This claim refers to the U.S. Treasury Department's repeated refusal to label China a currency manipulator. Not stated, this refusal began under President Bush, and many free market Republicans worry that so labeling China would do more harm than good. A third issue, raised in the Obama ad, is whether Mr. Romney's fortune is tied to investments in China. True, a Bain Capital Fund, in which a Romney family blind trust has holdings, purchased the video surveillance division of a Chinese company last year. But, as most analysts agree, Mr. Romney has exercised no direct role in Bain's operations since 1999. Val Demings has started her television ad campaign with gusto. In the past week, she put up 2 ads. One introduces her to voters, stressing her background as Orlando's first female police chief, and the second attacks her opponent, Dan Webster.
30-year politician Daniel Webster used taxpayer funds to build a lobbyist lounge.
This charge falls off the mark, as PolitiFact has noted. Back in 1996, when Webster became the state's first Republican House Speaker in modern times, he converted a windowless office into a space where former Republican leaders who had become lobbyists could gather during the legislative session. He didn't build this space, it existed already, and it was no lobbyist lounge in any meaningful sense. There was no alcohol, minimal furniture, and no lobbying clients either, according to multiple sources. If anything, Webster earned good marks for keeping lobbyists at bay during his tenure as House Speaker. Deming's second charge hits the mark.
Webster shut down town hall meetings and put voters who questioned him on a watch list.
All true, as was widely reported locally and nationally last year. It was a town hall disturbance like this one that allegedly prompted Dan Webster to make a list. Webster distributed a watch list to other lawmakers with the names of 6 Central Florida residents. The list included multiple photographs of those named, information about their affiliations, some of it false, and an internal document from a liberal organization about how to get attention at town hall meetings. What all this means and whether Webster did anything wrong is for Demings to say, but the charge itself is valid.